Morrissey, Dan Proft, and Donna Brazil go head-to-head at Beyond the Talking Points on Thursday, March 22nd. Tickets are on sale now at 560theanswer.com/beyond.
Good morning, Dan and Amy. So Nancy Pelosi's 8-hour filibuster yesterday.
Riveting.
Stephen Dugan tweeted, longest continuous speech since 1909, which was also by Nancy Pelosi. Believes she was railing against President Taft for not allowing enough Irish immigrants to come to the U.S., and said $10 bonuses Henry Ford gave to his workers to the success of the Model T were crumbs.
Mean.
That's so great.
Mean.
Very good.
No, well, she sat there and on the House floor. And
she didn't sit there.
She stood. Excuse me.
Please, give her credit.
In 4-inch heels. I want to know the make of her shoes. And she had women behind her. Jan Schakowsky was standing behind her at some point in time, to form solidarity. But she was talking about dreamers and telling their stories.
Ann B. Davis's bowling ball suggested that he was unaware C-SPAN started airing 8-hour infomercials for Depends. Here's Nancy Pelosi,
You guys are so mean.
per your reference, talking about those dreamers.
I'm reminded of my own grandson. He's Irish, English, whatever, and Italian-American. He's a mix. But he looks more like the other side of the family, shall we say. And when he had his sixth birthday, he had a very close friend whose name is Antonio, who's from Guatemala. And he has beautiful tan skin, beautiful brown eyes, and the rest. And this was such a proud day for me because when my grandson blew out the candles on his cake, they said, "Did you make a wish?" And he said, "Yes, I made a wish." He said, "Well, what is your wish?" He said, "I wish I had brown skin and brown eyes like Antonio." So beautiful. So beautiful. The beauty is in the mix. The face of the future for our country is all American, and that has many versions.
My kids have dark skin and brown eyes.
Yeah.
I wish I could be like it. Beginning of a lovely romance.
Now, the other the individual she didn't reference was, for example, the Sudanese-born beneficiary of a diversity visa lottery that funneled money for years to a designated terrorist, according to federal officials who have removed to strip him of his legal status. This reported yesterday in the Washington Examiner. Mubarak Ahmed Hamed was convicted in 2010 of sending $1 million from a nonprofit to a terrorist in Jordan, who redirected the funds to Iraq in the years before the U.S. invasion to depose Saddam Hussein. He began a 4-year, 10-month prison term in 2012, and now they want his legal status revoked. Or this story, the world's most persistent illegal immigrant, one Mexican managing to get deported 44 times in 15 years.
Whoa.
The runner-up was ousted 40 times between 2001 and 2015. Number 3, 4, and 5 on the list were deported 35, 34, and 31 times respectively, according to data provided to the Washington Times by U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement. So you can see why people are a little tired of the one-sided rhetoric, the refusal to acknowledge victims and their families of people who should not be in this country, as we have in sanctuary cities and sanctuary states like Chicago and like Illinois. And Pelosi's filibuster to try to extract a guarantee from Paul Ryan on a DACA deal went nowhere for that reason. For more on this topic and the budget deal and a range of other issues, we're pleased to be joined by our friend Ed Morrissey, senior editor for hotair.com and columnist for The Week. Ed, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Oh, thank you for having me on.
With respect to, Nancy Pelosi's theater notwithstanding, with respect to Republicans, Democrats agreeing on this 2-year budget deal that lifts the sequestration caps, was that taking full advantage of the leverage that the president had created with the Democrats over the previous government shutdown?
No, I would say absolutely not. It's a terrible deal. It's a deal, I guess, which is better than nothing in some ways. But this is what's amazing about this is that this is the most massive expansion of the federal budget that is about to come up here in probably 7 or 8 years, and it took single-party Republican governance to get us a massive expansion of the federal budget.
Right.
I'm still trying to wrap my head around that one, to be honest with you. That to me sounds like a really big loss. I know it's going to be spun as a win. We got the budget taken care of. Now we can focus on other things. And to be fair, Donald Trump did not get elected by being a budget hawk. I mean, he didn't. He was talking about the fact that deficits don't matter and you can run up the deficit. It doesn't make any difference. We just need to build stuff. So it's a fulfillment, I guess, of the 2016 election, of the theme set that carried the day in the 2016 election. But it's really a repudiation of everything that Republicans said that they stood for fiscally, I should say, for the last, 30 years?
Well, do you think anybody from the Freedom Caucus is going to come forward and say, what about the budget deficit?
Oh, they already have. I mean, they're saying that they're not going to vote for this thing. It's not going to matter because there's going to be enough Democrats voting for it so that the Freedom Caucus is, 20, 25 people? Mm-hmm. It's enough to keep them from getting a majority if Democrats don't cross over, but Democrats are going to cross over because they've made a deal with them.
Right.
And so the Freedom Caucus is going to get steamrolled on this one. But they are coming out and saying that they're not voting for this.
It is rather remarkable. I thought the president and Republicans understood that the president had his foot on the collective neck of congressional Democrats, and they were going to press down. But instead, they removed the foot and are on their merry way. You get to spend recklessly on your stuff, and we get to spend recklessly on our stuff, and we'll just keep the party going. That's not draining the swamp. So I wonder how the president is going to split the difference here.
It's not draining the swamp, and that's a great point because, I mean, that is something that cuts against the 2016 election themes. This is filling the swamp, and you're filling it with cash. I mean, this is what they do. They don't try to budget within their means. They just simply spend more money, and they borrow it in order to cover the cost. It's a never-ending cycle, and we're going to come up against a hard end to this at some point, and it's going to get very, very ugly when we're no longer able to borrow on that basis, and especially when the older Americans really start retiring and using Medicare and Social Security, and we find out that we've got perhaps hundreds of trillions of dollars in unfunded mandates there. I mean, it's going to be an absolute disaster. And then all of a sudden everybody's going to say, well, why didn't we do anything about this? Well, we had the opportunity, at least for a few years with these spending caps, to give ourselves an opportunity to find ways to live within our means and to prioritize money for things that really mattered and trim off everything else, and we never took advantage of it.
So yesterday about this time, another round of text messages between those two lovebirds over there at the FBI were dropped, and I was wondering your take on President Obama's involvement in the Hillary Clinton email investigation.
Well, actually, later on, it turned out that the text messages that they were talking about that Lisa Page had sent to Peter Strzok saying that she was working on talking points for James Comey because the president wanted to be briefed and wanted to know everything that was going on. Mm-hmm. The Senate sources for that story had said that it referenced the Clinton email investigation, which was dormant by the point in time that these texts came out. This was 2 months after James Comey had announced that the FBI was going to recommend that nothing be done about it. So it was a little curious. And then later on, apparently the other news agencies reported that it was actually about a briefing on counterintelligence and Russian penetration into, or disinformation campaign in the political thing, which would be appropriate for the president to be involved in. So, the thing is about these texts is that they tend to turn out to be nothing burgers when you find out the full context of them. You've got a couple of lovebirds who are very enamored of each other and themselves, and it sound like in these text messages that they're basically solving all the world's problems. I don't know how much we really should read into this stuff. And every time the secret society thing turns out to be a bust, this kind of turned out to be a bust. I'm not necessarily thinking that we're going to find out a whole lot from the pillow talk between Lisa Page and Peter Strzok.
Yeah, it still seems, though, that Andy McCarthy over at National Review gets more and more correct with each passing day. And the argument he's made since the outset that this was always about protecting President Obama and his email exchanges with Hillary Clinton using a pseudonymous email account. And he goes through the drafts that have been released of the statement that Comey issued at that infamous July 5th, 2016 press conference where he outlined Hillary's criminal conduct and then recommended against an indictment. And the fact that in previous drafts, 5 days earlier, this is from the draft, that use, meaning Hillary Clinton's use of personal email, included an email exchange with the president while Secretary Clinton was on the territory of such an adversary. Then that went from the president to a senior government official. Then that went from senior government official to redacted altogether. He notes that President Obama had his email communications with Hillary Clinton sealed. And then Attorney General Lynch is editing Comey's word usage to change investigation to matter, and so on and so forth. It does seem that there was a rally around the POTUS going on at DOJ and FBI and state during 2016.
Well, yeah, but Eddie McCarthy's getting that from better evidence, though, too. I mean, he's getting that from the actual drafts that went on, and right. He's not getting it from the Strzok Page text.
No, right.
And that's what I'm saying is that you're right. Those are concerns that really do need to be drilled down on, but we need to be looking at the actual evidence of that rather than chasing some other shiny object. Andy McCarthy's on the right track, and he's a smart guy, and I think he's right about that. But I don't think the stuff that came out yesterday about the Strzok Page texts really advances that story much. What
about the unredacted or mostly unredacted or additionally unredacted Grassley memo that indicates that Steele lied to the FBI about his media contacts, and then even after the FBI knew Steele was the source of the media stories, like the Yahoo story, the FBI lied to FISA about this and still proffered the Yahoo story to the court. That the FBI presented information to the FISA judge they knew was untrue.
Yes. This is another great example of this. We were all talking about the Nunes memo. The Nunes memo is basically an argument, and it's not a very solid argument. This, however, is the referral that Grassley and Graham sent to the Department of Justice to open a criminal investigation into Christopher Steele. That's a pretty solid document, and we found out when it first came out, most of it was redacted, but even the stuff that wasn't sounded a lot more promising than anything we saw in the Nunes memo. Now that we've seen most of it be unredacted, it's very interesting. It's a very solid piece of the puzzle, I would say. And I think we should be much more focused on that than on the Nunes memo.
Meanwhile, you have Adam Schiff, according to Daily Mail. Adam Schiff falls for the old Yakov Smirnoff prank phone call. I mean, this guy,
I know.
A prank phone call by Russian comedians who offered to give him compromising dirt on Donald Trump, including nude photos of the president and a Russian reality show star. And then Schiff dispatches his goons to try and get the information that was that these comedians allegedly had. How about this guy? We're supposed to take him seriously?
Well, I mean, if anything, it kind of reminds me of the Trump Tower meeting, right? With
yes, exactly.
Natalia Veselnitskaya. So, it's pretty clear that this type of stuff can happen pretty easily, and you don't have to be a traitor, as people have been accusing Trump Jr. and Kushner and Manafort to fall for something like that. I mean, this is if you're desperate for dirt. This is the type of trap that you wind up falling into. And this guy is the ranking member on the House Intelligence Committee who's been there for a while, and you'd think that maybe he would know something a little bit, how to protect himself against this kind of thing a little bit better than amateur political operatives did. I mean, if anything, it just demonstrates how you can fall into that sort of thing pretty easily.
Well, yeah, Adam Schiff also, he got a subsequent call that said somebody had Prince Albert in a can, and so he's looking for Prince Albert. Ed Morrissey, senior editor of HotAir.com, columnist for the week. Ed, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Oh, we'll find that Prince someday.
Yeah.
And Ed Morrissey joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
Hear